All right, so when the Rockets announced that James Harden wasn't going to play in that ABC Saturday night primetime matchup between the Rockets and Warriors, a lot of assumptions Houston had no chance. But no, Rockets came out huge in that game right from the jump. They beat the two-time defending champs for the second time at Oracle this season. Tim, you were at that game. Were you more encouraged by the Rockets? Were you disappointed in the Warriors? Where was the balance in that one?
Definitely more encouraged by the Rockets. The Warriors, they're going to sleepwalk in some regular season games. I think definitely, they were there was a little bit of a letdown there with Harden being out. But for the Rockets here, this was a huge win, and not just because of the competition, but Kenneth Faried, you see him there, Stretch Faried. Starting at power forward, and that was the first time they had Faried and Capela on the floor together. Rebounding has been a huge problem for them. If that lineup works, that can solve a lot of issues for the Rockets, and it definitely worked the other night with P.J. Tucker sliding down a small forward. So the Faried-Capela combination clicked. CP3 is playing the best basketball he's played all season long. He looks fresh. He looks like he has the same kind of juice that he had last season. And that is a huge deal for Houston.
So he's in activation mode too?
He's in healthy right now mode for sure.
So I think it's way bigger for the Rockets than it is for the Warriors, because so much of what their identity is that they were the team that could have beat the Warriors in Game 7 if Chris Paul didn't get hurt, right? They were the team that took the Warriors all the way to the final. In their minds, they win that series if Chris doesn't get hurt. And so you see him out there dominating the way he did and having the kind of game he did without James. That's huge for them.
Yeah, and I do think that confidence is there. I sat down with James Harden last week, and one thing we talked about was all last season, every time you talked to the Rockets, they were like, we think we can take the Warriors. Every time throughout the season, their confidence was off the charts. They didn't end up doing it, but they felt they could. This season, I did not see until maybe last week the first little inkling of them thinking, oh, we could be there in the Western Conference Finals, and then we have a shot. And this game, to me, was sort of their moment, because they beat the Warriors last time in overtime on that crazy miracle shot from James. That's not as much of a confidence-building win as a hey, it went in win. Whereas this one, they beat them, and the Chris Paul point, to your point, is such a big deal. I want to check out the Who is in the Zone, brought to you by AutoZone. Chris definitely earned this one. 23 points, 17 assists in the win. And look, Tim, again, you're around this team all the time. Chris Paul's health has been a factor, and people keep saying, it's funny, I kept hearing during the streak, people say, when Chris comes back, James won't have to do as much. Chris has been back, and people almost didn't even notice, right? Because he wasn't able to contribute at his level. And I've heard you say at times throughout this season, you weren't sure he could get back to the player he was last year. You've changed your mind on that?
He looks like that guy right now. You look at the last 7 games since he's kind of chipped off the rust and gotten past the minutes restriction. He's averaging 19 points, 10 assists. I mean, he's playing as well as he's played all season long. Now, flip side of that, 4 of the last 5 games, he's played more than 35 or more minutes. That cannot continue. So, are we done questioning his health? He's healthy right now. But it's absolutely something you have to monitor. The Rockets need to monitor, and they've got to get those minutes back to that low 30s range. He can't be averaging 34, 35 minutes like he did before he went down the first time.
I don't think we're ever going to be done questioning his health. And I think over the course of the 5-year contract that he signed, that is going to be the major theme that we'll all look through, because so much of his game is about the ability to get by people.
Right.
And when you have leg injuries the way that he has, that hurts your ability to get by people. When you have hamstring injuries, they're always going to be nagging. They're always kind of going to be there. He has done a remarkable job getting himself back into shape. I'm really impressed by the way he's got himself into shape. And I think, and into that level that he's at right now. Also, I think we should got to give credit to the Rockets that they've just retooled. Their big play was getting Melo, and that failed spectacularly. But they sort of rebuilt this thing on the fly, and it's starting to work. All of those things don't usually happen over the course of one season.
Well, they got Austin Rivers out of necessity when CP3 went down. That's huge for their guard depth. They got Faried out of necessity when Capela goes down. Now he might end up starting at power forward. But these are early buyout market minimum guys that are huge additions for them. Shumpert's got a knee issue. I believe he's playing tonight. They need to kind of get him in the mix. But they are much deeper now than they were when they got off to that horrific start at the beginning of the season.
No, it's a credit to Daryl Moreys, who we always say is tinkering right up until the end. He always says, I'm not done tinkering until we start the playoffs. It's also credit to Mike D'Antoni and his coaching staff, because I was also just looking at Gerald Green in one of those clips. You're talking about a guy who was in his driveway at home playing with his dog when they picked him up. Kenneth Faried, who was languishing out on the East Coast, not fitting in with his team, and there he is playing this key role for them. You can go on and on and on with the guys that they have worked into there. And we talk about other teams where the roster hasn't quite fit all season, and they didn't make all these little tiny moves along the way and then have the coaching to sort of back those up, that they have now put themselves again being a contender. It's very impressive no matter what happens with them.